You're listening to The Adventuring Party, talking about gaming the Irish way. Cade Mila Vulture, you son of a gun.
Welcome to the party. I'm Owen.
I'm Shane.
And I'm Dave. And today we're here, to go over do's and don'ts when prepping for a campaign. Gentlemen, what should you do and should you not do?
Well, clearly, the first thing to do is you need to make a 15-page campaign doc going into extreme detail on every single faction, NPC, and major historical event. The timeline is very important. Going back 37,000 years to the third origin of the universe, when the...
And am I expected to read this document?
Well, you're not a real player if you don't read every lore, right? I spent so much time writing this lore. It can't go to waste. It can't go to waste.
Gotcha. Brandon Sanderson is one of the greatest living fantasy writers, and takes a craftsman's approach to his writing. A few years ago, he wrote the Stormlight Archive Book 1, which is a fantastically successful series at this point. But the opening chapter is best described as the tutorial mode for the video game would be based in this world, where the character starts using lashings and stuff and kind of going through using different lashings on people to produce kind of mechanical effects. And I swear to God, so many people have just bounced off the series because of that. You've got to pick your time to hand people the lore doc or the explainer. Now, there are times when it's important to explain things, and organically doing that can be tricky, but I think the document is maybe not the right way. So really what we're going to talk about here is the do's and don'ts of starting your campaign. Dun dun.
I think one of the things, the first things to go in is like, how much prep is what you need versus how much prep is what your players need, because those are different things. Like, if you can absolutely, and it is off quite ways to have pretty good idea of what you. Oh, actually, you know what? We're gonna start from the very beginning. It's like, what do you want from the campaign is probably the first question you need to ask, and then the second question is probably, well, what do the players want?
Well, the GM's there to have fun there as well as the players, so yeah, makes sense.
But yeah, like, here's the thing: is a lot of eager world builders, or as Owen would refer to them, frustrated novelists. They'll start building a world before they have a game to run in it, and that could lead down what we might call design dead ends or prep dead ends, perhaps. The purpose of the exercise was, we hope, that is to create a not even a setting, a situation in which an interesting game experience can happen. And if you're going to focus an awful lot on, setting details because you want deep vermicelitude, well, is it a deep vermicelitude game? Is it a game where it is very important that people know that there's handkerchief etiquette, or that there's 14 different kinds of goblins? Or is it a game where you're going to go into a dungeon and stab some horrible monster made by a mad wizard, and then do that again 15 times?
My first question would always be, is this an existing setting you're running a game in, or is this a brand new setting of your own creation? Because if it's an existing setting, we then get into how well known is the setting. Now, you will occasionally find people who've never seen Star Wars, but there's probably a base level with Star Wars game And people go, oh, cool, I kind of know that. Whereas if you say Wolfrup, you go, it's Warhammer. Oh, I don't really know Warhammer. It's set in the Holy Roman Empire. I don't really know the Holy Roman Empire. Okay, well, two things you need to know. First, it's not Roman. Second thing, it's not holy. But what it is. So it kind of depends on, you've got a pre-established universe, and that can make actually explaining things simpler because you can boil it down to the essential things you need to know. Initially, your pitch should probably not be longer than 3 or 4 sentences or a paragraph to explain what the setting is.
Yeah, sounds good.
Initially.
Initially. I mean, like, you can't, if you throw a novel at somebody, they're not going to physically be able to read it that quickly.
No. And the thing is, you need to go, here's the pitch. You don't want to spend 3 hours explaining the backstory of your fantasy universe for someone to go, oh god, I hate games like that. Can we play some sci-fi instead? You want a quick one so that there's... Initially, you want buy-ins. You want to sell people, this is the kind of game. I was recently pitching 3 games, and I said, I was asked about Run Traveller. I said, okay, I've got 3 options here. I've got Traveller, I've got Lancer, and I've got a third game... what was it? It was Traveller and Lancer were my main 2, though. I said, I have the third game there as an option for you if you guys want to do it. I don't want to run fantasy at the moment. I want to run thing as GM. I'm giving you some options. And people were kind of interested in Lancer, and I said, okay, can I stick a pin in Lancer? Because I'm prepping some stuff for Lancer, but I'm waiting for some equipment to arrive so I can do it properly. Some 3D, a 3D, basically, effectively Hex Battlefield is coming, and I've paid money for it to run Lancer with it, and I'd prefer to run Lancer with that. So we narrowed it down to Traveller. Then I said, Grant, here's what we're going to do in Traveller. And I said, here's a couple of different options for different campaign types. Because I've got some preset campaigns. I've got one where it's pirates. And this is a bit more of an involved one because you're a little more self-determining what you're doing. It's a bit more of a sandbox. And one of the players is like, I hate playing criminals. Can we not play criminals? And I said, sure, no problem. I've got this one which is about kind of an investigation into kind of the archaeology of the setting.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of go, oh, we like that. And I said, cool, we'll go with that one. And there was another one I had then, which was basically like a military campaign. I said, okay, Grant, we can push those to the side. The players are interested in this one. Away we go with this one. Yeah. And you're setting up so the players are at least interested in the concept of it first. Because if you're going to get into, and now we get into the lore of the setting, and they're not interested, and then they go into the lore, they're like, they can totally bounce off, be like, oh man, I hate this, sorry. Here's the
thing, like you can absolutely get in a situation where the lore of your setting, custom or pre-made, becomes really important and really useful as a storytelling device. But I don't think it's step one. I think you have to first get people into the game and playing until they're in a situation where, oh, I need to know more information. Let's find out more information. And when you get to that point, then having 15-page, not necessarily to hand them to list off everything, but like having references and material to work with becomes very useful at that point. But that's a different proposal than just like showing your work, page 1, saying, look upon my failed novel, Despair. Would you like to play a game in that? That's I don't think that's the point. That's good work to have in your back pocket, but the focus of the start is like, what is the unique selling point of this game we're going to play? And there's nothing wrong with like going off and designing a setting for like a year or something, or fiddling around with it for 15 years in the back of your game where you're doing other games, then saying, oh, this is a setting I have now, and then pitching a game in that thing. But like, the point is not to show your work and show your how much effort you put into it. The point is to have the game ready to go, and then that becomes useful as you run the game because you have reference material and such to go back to, and build plot stuff off of. And okay, we need a wizard. Where's the nearest wizard? These things become more useful at that point after they actually have problems that knowing things will solve.
Yeah. Like, if you're running a game, you need to have a game there. Like, you
Yeah.
World building is wonderful and all, but it's I mean, world building is fun in itself, and I think GMs can miss that. That's not necessarily going to be fun for everyone else.
Yeah. I mean, like again, if you pitch the campaign as we start off with a whole bunch of world building and we design the setting together, that's perfectly viable. But it's something that you're going to improve with the pitch document. If someone comes along, with their character idea, and wondering, oh, who are the knight factions? What rivals might I have? And then comes session 0, and you are literally writing, okay, we're designing the setting now, and Jimmy has some really cool ideas about being cavemen, and Sarah has something about the observer aliens from the space station above coming down to act like wizards, and yeah, you don't surprise. This is just a general advice: is don't surprise people with chunks of the game. You're. I saw a really cool quote recently. It's like, no one likes being surprised, but people do love being initiated. They like, try to bring people in to your circle. Don't just shock. It's just like, don't jump out of a bush. Wielding your lore document like a net to grab them. That's not the way to go about it. But yeah, like, do you want to talk about the counterexample, the no prep campaign, where we just say, all right, we grab a starter adventure from another system and just run through that using our new system or old system, whatever, and just we'll see where we go from there. It's just, the town has a blacksmith in it. It's probably fine. There's probably a wizard 3 miles that way. Just coming up with details as you go. Do people have seen something that does it feel fake and contrived, or
like totally building the setting as you go? Could just yeah, sure. There's giant elephants around here. They're a common feature of the plains. Or what are we talking about?
That's sort of one of the things. Again, I believe Dungeon World sort of implies a setup like that, where like you'll have your basic threats, basically the only thing that's defined, and then what happens in a session will generally be determined by what the players are trying to do. There's sort of a improv-y style things, like you build your dungeons, you build your surroundings, and the only real things you have set in stone is that there are orcs or there is the undead portal or whatever.
I mean, I'm fine with kind of let's do some improv. My only issue is if you keep doing it, it will ultimately it ends up incoherent because people forget stuff. I'm fine with, hey, let's improv some stuff out, like broad details, and then we'll fill in more details. Like you can do a collaborative world build where everyone improvs out some ideas. There's a bunch of games that are kind of based on that quiet year and similar stuff, and where everyone establishes facts and then everyone else adds on to those facts. And I'd use that as a framework to build a world as a kind of a collaborative process. I think going off and building your own world on your own is frustrated novelist territory. And unless you've got like a genuinely dynamite idea, which every frustrated novelist will think they have, in my world, this is completely original. No one's ever done this before. But in my world, it's the regular world, except in every generation, a single woman is chosen to be the warrior against vampires. And I mean, you're kind of you're gonna start to your face is gonna naturally draw to a sort of a wince here as it continues on, as this person sincerely believes they're the first person ever to do this. And you're like,
it's unlikely you've come up with an original idea, even if you think you have.
Yes, absolutely, nothing new under the sun.
And so obviously you still love that idea because it's your idea, it's your personal thing, and while that leads many a gem down the dark path, you can turn it around and use it as a benefit in your game if you're using it to help the players feel connected. Like if you don't have to like fully collaborate world build, but if you give each player, for example, design one thing, design one faction, or design some characters, they will feel a sense of connections to those characters, and that can be a window into them seeing the rest of the setting. Because say, I want to have this like rival who's a knight. You say, well, I had these knights over here in this session, so I'll use making one of those knights, and suddenly there's an inroad leading directly from what a player wanted into an aspect you're selling, maybe one that you'd forgotten about and hadn't intended to flesh out, and all of a sudden you have an excuse to use it as a major plot element. These kind of things can abound. Like ultimately, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a game setup that people have bought into, and therefore you have to use what material you have in order to sell, as opposed to swamp a player. You're trying not to them off. So if you are, trying to create a campaign pitch, you should probably focus on what the interesting details are. Like the what can you do with this campaign? Like, is there loads of dungeons around? Well, then that's an opportunity for dungeon crawling. Is there lots of political entry, inroads to political campaign? Part of the issue, I think, is that people create their settings with the intention of this setting can be for any kind of campaign. We'll have political intrigue and dungeons and mass combat and a city full of mysteries and this then creates like well, what you could do anything. This it's the blank page problem. So you can do anything. The setting was just like, well, maybe the players don't know what they want yet, and having some direction to a specific campaign style would be more useful. Or you could have another problem where each player has a different idea of where things go, and they're sort of tugging each other around, trying to get to the part they're interested in. And there's no work being done getting on the same page. And that's a point where, having a smaller piece of lore to focus in on the game you wanted, or, I mean, the inevitable discussion of, discuss at the start of the game what you actually want to play. Maybe those are angles you do.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're much better off. Like, there are things you have to explain to people, like this key setting information that you have to explain to people. I think that is part of a lore dump, and you need to keep those key parts to as small as possible. And sometimes one of the things to do is actually portion that information out to a single player from that area who can explain how it works. Like, for example, in Traveller, a jump takes a week. That's what it takes. More or less a little bit of time, it takes a week. What if I jump 1? I'm jumping 1-star system. It takes a week. What if I jump 2? I'm jumping 2-star system. It takes a week. You enter a parallel dimension, you fly through a bubble of time. Can we prematurely collapse the bubble? That will kill us all. Okay. So can we no, this is just all it takes. Can we no, it takes a week, guys. This is how the system works. And you maybe get the engineer character to be able to, or the character with some engineering skill to go, this is how it works. You don't fiddle with that. It's a great way to emerge on the other side as some high energy radiation. Or like if you got the crab player in Alpha 4 is like, okay, this is how the Shadowlands taint works, or at least how we believe it works, and how you protect yourself from it. And you carry Jade. And like, well, we don't have any Jade. Well, that's pretty stupid, isn't it?
You have to go to the Shadowlands if you do not have Jade.
Yeah. So that's so you have maybe 1 or 2 vital bits of information. Like Alpha 4, what else do you need to know? You've got to refuse. You maybe explain to the courtier character, look, the rules are you always refuse a gift twice. And you accept it on the 3rd time if you actually want it. Or you refuse it the 3rd time if you genuinely don't want it. and a little bit about how everyone's going to need a brief explanation of honor and glory and what the difference of the two of them are. Is honor and glory and status if you're doing that as well. Like what's the difference here? And there were critical pieces of information to explain because this is how the world works. Oh, no one's allowed to talk about magic. Magic secret. No one can ever admit they can cast spells. That's not that you can't do that. So what you want there is you want to make it manageable. Maybe make one player responsible for explaining this bit to the rest of the party because they understand it. They're a wizard. They should know, okay, no one talks about magic, But if no one talks about magic, maybe they all know that bit. So there maybe should be some stuff that people kind of fully understand and then some bits that other individual people understand. Now, what you do kind of after that is a lot to do with, right, how much am I explaining about my setting? Manageable chunks. And when it's relevant, not all at once. Because you try to tell everybody all at once, people will forget half of it. So don't do that. Explain it bit by bit.
Yeah. You want. There's I think one big habit of GMs is that I know this is something that I do is that I just say. To come up with a mystery and you just sort of leave it hanging there on a coat hook and then the players go, that's mystery. And they walk on to the things that they have enough grounding in to say that they could solve it as opposed to this random mystery that is like standing there in the middle of nowhere. And you feel wonders. It's like, don't you want to solve the mystery? But like they don't have a hook into it.
Yeah. Why should their characters care?
Yeah. And that I think is a thing you have to be aware of. Is like you can't just have setting elements just like hang around there unless they are somehow made relevant. Like you could like the Grizzled Detective does not solve mysteries because I like solving mysteries. The Grizzled Detective comes because a dame with legs up to her shoulders comes in and tells him a sob story and pays a ridiculous amount of money to go smoke and drink brandy close to her 13 estranged husbands, and then someone tries to kill them 3 times, and now you're in too deep. You have to lead people to if you want some people to have interest in the thing, you have to say, well, here's the interesting things about it. You can't just like leave it there as nothing. And there's nothing wrong with having stuff that's just in your campaign setting because it's weird, like those big statues by the waterfall in Lord of the Rings. You can have stuff that just implies the setting. Nothing wrong with that, but you don't expect people to be interested and want to learn every single thing about them. They'll just be set dressing, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think so. Like, ultimately, I think that you need to break... As part of getting ready to run your game, I think breaking down your setting for the players into manageable chunks is important, and finding ways to explain it to them when it's important for them to understand something is kind of key. You'll have to do the occasional lore dump, and okay, guys, but keep it as manageable and short as possible. And don't overstay it into a lengthy explanation. You may be better off running an adventure that illustrates it to people. And Night of Blood for Wolfrup is very good in that it explains that the following things to players. You have to stay in coaching inns at night because the giant roads that wind through forests in the Empire are full of beastmen and mutants. And mutants can sometimes hide among regular people because when you get into the inn, it's full of mutants who have murdered the original innkeepers and replaced them. And that kind of teaches you a couple of things. And the last thing it teaches you is people can summon demons because the mutants are trying to summon a demon down in the basement.
Yeah.
So it tells you, it teaches you 3 things about the setting immediately as you play it. Spoilers for Night of Blood, by the way.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like teaching by doing is very important, and I think that's one of the things. Like, if you have your massive lore document and you really do feel that the players need to see this, I put in all this work, it needs to be shown to people. You then have to design an adventure where showing this to the players is part of the players' objectives, and that it is interesting for them to do it. Like they are like all those little bullet points of the amazing, interesting things of your setting need to be ammunition for them. Like, finding them out needs to make them feel empowered, and then being able to navigate different factions in your thing, or to be able to win a war against all these to solve the mystery of the rat men in the sewers. These need to be, when they've done it, they need to feel like they've accomplished something, as opposed to they feel like they've gone through a Wikipedia article at length. Yeah, this, and I say again, at the end of the day, the point of this all is to have a game, and you could totally gamify lore and knowledge and stuff, but like it just takes effort. You need to make it all relevant to the game you're going to play. And I mean, part of the issue is, like, some people do not know the type of game they want to play before they started, and so they prepare everything. But you just need to think of, like, what is relevant to the situation, the gaming situation that are we trying to, we all agree that we want to play a game, we all agree we want to play the system, but we don't agree, not quite, none of us are sure what type of campaign it's going to be. Then the classic: start in a small town, there's a dungeon nearby, there's a city over the horizon, and then feel your way out to the kind of game you want to play based on that. Having all that setting information is useful, but it's not the focus of the campaign. The focus of the campaign is figuring out what you're doing, and slowly unraveling different layers of the campaign as you go. That can become a campaign in itself. Hope you like. Maybe you need to put out hex crawling rules, or a big faction system behind the curtain. You need to use your prep time. The stuff that you prepared for your game needs to be needs to be used for your game, as opposed to for its own sake. I mean, there is a big world building community online. If you just want to show off your cool setting, people, but if you want to make a game out of it, you need to use it judiciously, as a game supplement, as opposed to something that dwarfs the game itself.
Also, start small with the stuff the players immediately need to know, rather than the big picture stuff that they may only be partially aware of. You'd be surprised how many people are largely unengaged from major things that are happening in the world.
Yeah. You could absolutely have politics be a major part of the game, but like you should start at the scale that they're at, where maybe the reason that there are goblins in this mine kidnapping people is a result of a long chain of kings and factional infighting, and a prophet of the goblin god who is snuffed out before his time, etc. These things might all be relevant, but the thing your players need to know is where the goblins are, who's been kidnapped, and what the reward for intervening is, and that can very naturally lead into each onion layer of political intrigue. But to start off with, you need to get the basics.
Yeah, no, like there's you're simply not going to get people to absorb like a whole political mess of intrigue in one session. It's just not happening. But yeah, like you can absolutely lure people into that over time.
Absolutely.
And have them, they can have a ball with it.
There's also the question of throwing things out, because this could be a problem like if a player, for example, comes with their own idea for, well, I have this idea for how wizards work in this city, or I would like to play a psionic in a setting that we had not even thought about psionic rules or something before, and those are more player GM conversations. You need to have, again, setting expectations, setting like what is every person comfortable with, and you do get a vote as a setting writer. It's like, do you want your setting to be, would you be disruptive? Do you take the airborne approach where you have a starting point in your setting, but you can run the same campaign a dozen times and it goes in different directions each time, world exploding in a very different, interesting time each campaign. You some the material is there to be used as opposed to be preserved. Like, if you're that precious about saying that it cannot change and the players cannot disrupt your thing, it might not be game material. One would hope that if the players cannot save the world or doom the world or wipe out the faction people that they particularly object to, there might not have been much point in them showing up. And that's, again, the novelist territory. Like, if you want your players to use your setting information, you can't then turn around and say, no, not like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know I have my own ongoing setting, and over 3 civil wars that the players have started in different ways.
Oh,
The
I think at
Kaiju
some
are no
point they're
longer.
the problem, right?
Hmm?
I think at the point you start your third Civil War, I think at this point you're the problem.
The setting was supposed to be threatened by kaiju, but it's really been threatened by player characters far more than any kaiju has come along.
The
Well,
real
if
kaiju was the Civil Wars we started along the way.
look, if things are so unstable, the civil wars just kick off. I mean, is it really the player's fault?
Oh, it definitely is. I know what
Yeah,
they did.
fair.
But yeah, like, and I do think one of the most rewarding things I find with world building is when players affect things, and then that feeds back into world building. Like, people say, "Oh, I need to be completely prepped for my campaign beforehand." Very often, you might not know what the players need from a setting until you start. I know there's massive chunks of settings I've written where I had to come up with stuff because the players had certain needs, and the overview docs that I had come up with were insufficient. So I was essentially had to backfill in a huge amount of the setting, and the setting is richer from it because you'll particularly if you're a very top down person, you're thinking, oh, in the beginning, the great god created the universe and forged the demigods and breathe the continents away, and the players are born strangers. It's like, but is there a way to really piss off the Order of Dark Knights? Like, do anyone go to gold mine the week collapse or something like that?
Because they're awful people, and they deserve annoying.
Yeah, but like every person, we talk, people can overhype collaborative storytelling, and we're not saying you need to fully have the players come up with a whole bunch of stuff, but they're often going to be very inspiring. They're often going to think about different details that you did not think about during your prep process, because unless, again, you all came together and made the setting together. But like, if you're not doing that, you should be open to the players' needs being a very inspiring thing, because that causes more game to happen, which is the objective again.
Yeah, this is why I make fun of people being frustrated novelists, because a frustrated novelist is going to immediately reject any edit by a player, whereas someone who's actually collaboratively producing a game is going, oh yeah, that's a cool idea, I'll stick that in. Or I didn't think about that, let me throw that one in there, And that is kind of an important one to do. All right, so where are we coming down on this one, guys? Where was our conclusion here?
Prep for a game, not for a setting. The setting is meant to. The setting material is meant to enable a game to happen. It can be also a creative exercise. It can also be used in other games, other settings. It could also be used in your novel. But like the point of the exercise is to have a game. So prep to create the game that you want. If you don't know the game you want, you probably should check in with the players. And again, don't be afraid for things to be thrown out, things to be changed, and things to be set on fire in the process of having a game with your players, your friends, and if you really need to just separately world build, you can separately world build. But I think there's nothing wrong with some good world building as a lead into a game, and you can turn your prep into a game or an experience, and both things can happen as long as you remember what the purpose of each creative exercise is for.
Yeah, another option is to take existing material, like whether for inspiration or just in entire modules. If you're going to do that, though, read them, know what's it's in them, because it can be quite an annoyance to think what's coming up, and then realize, oh, they've mentioned something important about this NPC buried halfway to this block of text on page 20. That would have been good to know.
Yeah. Check your material, and you can run a game where the players know the setting better than you, but you probably need to set your social contract of what is the protocol for I got wrong which side of the river the city is on, versus we started the plot and you killed Darth Vader 3 minutes in. What do we do now? You maybe set those parameters before you start your Star Wars Redux or whatever. Nothing wrong with using a quick chat in your first session of how close to can do we have to stick? Do we worry about minor details, or can we brush past them? Will it annoy people if I do not mention that each of the Rangers has a particularly colored feather in their hat? Do we need to know the Ranger feather code? Check in with people about your setting, which you're bothering, or broad strokes could work, or most of the time for most people, as most things do.
Absolutely. If you're a frustrated novelist looking to come and complain to us for calling you a frustrated novelist, you'll find our social media contacts all over this stuff. Come shout at us in the Discord. Email us on our email address. Contact us on SpeakPipe. God knows what you can do, but perhaps write a message and throw it on a carrier pigeon.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, this party's over.
Thank you for listening to The Adventuring Party. Join us on our Discord server, where we keep the party going after hours. Otherwise, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Twitter, or you can email the hosts at party@theadventuringparty.net. The Adventuring Party is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike version 3 license. But you probably knew that already. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and look forward to seeing you back here next week. Goodbye.